Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Devina Krishna, and today I'm going to talk on the topic Reviving Eroding Voices, How Technology is Saving Endangered Indian Languages. So, here is the outline of my talk. The talk comprises of the following contents: introduction, objective review of literature, hypothesis, research methodology, data analysis and discussion, platforms and initiatives, conclusion and implications. So before I talk about what I'm going to speak, I will just like to talk about the 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 fact that basically I'll be talking about how artificial intelligence is saving eroding languages. So voices that are getting lost, languages that are getting lost. We know that we are surrounded by the situation of endangerment and how that's a serious issue, and it's an alarming issue. And when I talk about my country, India, so I can say that India is a it's full of diversity. There are so many languages, but of course, many of the languages are facing extinction. So here I have mentioned that indigenous languages being killed. So the world speaks around 7,000 languages, and 50 to 95% of which might be extinct or seriously endangered by the end of the century. The risk looms large on indigenous languages. Now, the question is that how alarming is the situation in India? Of course, it's a very risky situation. It's an alarming situation. These are the things which I, as a linguist, I feel that it's a sensitive issue because often we when we talk about different things, so many things getting lost, getting vanished. Many a times we don't think of languages, and it's a serious thing if there are no speakers left, so there won't be any language that will be there. And you know dying of speakers is not only the cause. There's so many reasons that are actually there that actually make this whole idea of how the language endangerment and the threat that languages are facing. So there are various reasons. Of course, migration is one such reason these days, when we are surrounded by climate change also. So climatic change also leads to reduction of languages. So it's a risky situation. So, how can we as linguists contribute in the preservation of languages? Of course, we can document languages. Of course, we can document languages, we can preserve, revitalize. There are various means. I always, urge people to speak their mother tongues or at least be a polyglot. Okay. Well, this is a polyglot conference. And of course, we should focus on, learning as many languages as we can. And of course, one can do that easily. So, learning different languages, it aids to your cognitive abilities. It helps you in many forms. So I'll just begin. So the first thing is that I have here spoken about, how India represents diverse linguistic codes. So we have scheduled, non-scheduled, and lesser known languages. Then the crisis facing indigenous languages in India and how the dominant paradigm of development imperils them. So the point is that, the languages in India, they are facing extinction. So the point is to preserve those languages, revitalize those languages, promote those languages. I call them vulnerable codes. Now, as far as the endangerment is concerned, there are various levels of endangerment. Some languages are critically endangered, for example. So the point is to make them feel safe. So one such area, since the present time is the time of technology, so we cannot overlook or we cannot avoid artificial intelligence. So I thought that why not try to explore the intervention of AI to revive endangered Indian languages. How it also how it works on machine learning algorithm. So, of course, there's this whole process to transcribe and translate oral histories and stories from endangered language speakers. So we can say that AI also serves as a guardian to to save the dying languages, to save the vulnerable codes, to save the endangered codes. Now, the objective of the present work is to discover the prolific role of AI in enhancing language preservation through its contribution to translation mechanism. So I've actually chosen the area of translation applications, how through certain applications we save languages. To showcase artificial intelligence role in revitalizing endangered Indian languages through translation tools. Then I've also highlighted bit on copyright issues related to AI generated translations, and then the constructive side of AI driven translation applications. Now, as far as the review of literature is concerned, well, Kulkarni in 2020 states that AI-powered tools can assist in documenting and preserving endangered languages through automated transcription, translation, and analysis. Then, similarly, Gupta in 2019 has stated that machine learning systems in the form of algorithms can help identify and classifying linguistic patterns, simplifying language documentation. So series of, you can see that lots of people, lot of experts have mentioned that how, through these AI driven language learning platforms, the younger generations can also, can also be engrossed in learning the endangered languages. So that's also one way. That's also one way. And the younger generation is fond of technology. So uh, why not help them to or let's say we should orient them about the use of technology in preserving our codes. So that's what we can do. Now, the hypothesis, I have already mentioned two hypotheses. Primary states that AI led translation tools seek to revive endangered Indian linguistic codes, thereby making huge impact upon users. And ancillary states several severe copyright issues exist related to AI generated translation. So, this is just a supporting hypothesis. I've just mentioned from the legal side also. Now, the methodology is qualitative, and that's mingled with an exploratory research design. I formed a questionnaire where I consulted young undergraduates and postgraduate students of a college. They were users of different translation tools and applications, and the effectiveness of AI powered translation tools in preserving their languages was actually analyzed. And of course, there was a need to identify challenges and opportunities in using AI for language preservation. As far as the data is concerned, as far as the primary data sources, the survey analysis method was being used to gather first-hand information from the AI translation tools users. A questionnaire on the topic was circulated through the instant messaging platform, WhatsApp, and data was collected in the form of the generated responses. For secondary data sources, academic journals and relevant web sources were consulted, and primary data, there was a combination of primary data from user surveys and secondary data from academic sources to explore the experiences of AI translation tool users. Now, as you can see, the analysis and discussion. So it was actually, you know, it was found that Google Translate was a clear leader with 50% of respondents relying on it for their translation needs. So it emerged as a winner. Then we have Bhashini, the second most popular choice, used by 25% of respondents. Then we have similarly some other translation applications also, Anuvadini, which was used by a smaller but still significant 8% of respondents. Now, a notable 17% of respondents use other translation tools, indicating a diverse range of preferences. So we can say that Google Translate, it actually emerged as a dominant player in the translation tool market, but of course, other tools uh, are also prevalent there. And but yes, of course, there was one that was emerging as the dominant one. Then the second graph states that an impressive 67% of respondents strongly agree, indicating a high level of satisfaction and confidence in using translation tools. Further, 17% agreed, showing a significant majority of users who are comfortable and content with translation tools. Then we have a significant 8% of respondents slightly agreed, indicating some reservations in their satisfaction. And then we have a minority of users, almost 8%, who have had negative experience or concerns with translation tools. but we will see that majority were satisfied in using translation tools. Then another graph states that an overwhelming 67% of respondents strongly agree, indicating a strong conviction that the benefits of translation application services for far outweigh their drawbacks. So they believe that the benefits were more, and similarly, there were some more who like who almost agreed, but then 8% of respondents strongly disagreed, indicating a strong belief that the disadvantages outweigh the advantages. So it was this kind of you can say result. Then another 8% disagree, bringing the total percentage of negative responses to 16%. Now, in another graph, a majority 53% of respondents strongly agree, indicating a firm belief that translation applications can play a significant role in reviving endangered languages, whereas a further 36% agree, bringing the total percentage of positive responses to 89%. Further, it suggests that almost 9% strongly believe translation applications do not play some role in revival of codes, whereas 2% disagree to the fact that the tools safeguard languages. So you can see that majority of them are in favor of the belief that translation tools can play a significant role in reviving endangered languages. Now, these are some platforms and initiatives. Uh, well, I was when I started working on this topic, I was surprised. I was surprised that there are like so many platforms, so many initiatives are being taken, where these platforms they are developing AI powered translation tools and tools for actually safeguarding the Indian languages. So I'll just name few of these. We have AI for Bharat's Indian language translation platform. Then we have the Endangered Languages Project, ELP India. Then we have Bhasha's Indian language translation platform. Then we have the People's Linguistic Survey of India, that's called the PLSI. And then we have Google's Endangered Languages Project. And then we have Microsoft's Azure Cognitive Services. So these are various applications, various platforms that actually support language preservation and documentation through these powerful tools of translation. So Google Translate, suppose, for example, supports Santhali language translation. So Santhali is also quite vulnerable from text and speech. Then AI for Bharat's Indian language translation platform includes Santhali language support for machine translation. Then Bhashini aimed at creating open source datasets in regional languages for producing AI tools and applications. The villagers in Karnataka are among thousands of speakers of diverse Indian languages producing speech data for tech firm called Karya, which is making datasets for firms such as Microsoft and Google to use in AI models for the domains of education, health sector, and various other areas as well. So, of course, well, when we say that translation, so as I conducted the survey, so basically, I wanted to find among the young generation whether they use translation led applications. So basically, translating, they use translation. So at times, if they have to translate, suppose there is an English passage, they need to translate that in Hindi or in their mother tongue. Because I am from linguistics, I often ask them to prepare assignments in their mother tongue. So they use applications. They use these applications. So in that way, it is quite beneficial to them. But of course, translation has its own disadvantages also. Sometimes we cannot find the equivalent word for you can say the for a particular word, we cannot find the equivalent word. So it has its drawbacks, and not all the languages are covered by all these applications. Of course, there are limitations, but then it's a start. And a few years back, like we never expected, like there will be some applications like Bhashini, Anuvadini, but there are so many applications that are getting updated from time to time, and they're helping people a lot. So in let's look at the sunny side, as I always say. So let's also hope for a better tomorrow, where we can have some more, some applications, some tools with more features and more output. So in this, I also wanted to include the angle of law. Well, the first thing to question is that who owns the rights to AI generated translations? Well, these are some tricky questions. It can be the creator of the AI tool, the user who inputs the tool, or someone else. Then the next thing to consider is whether AI generated translations could be regarded as derived works of the original text or novel creations. So of course, the output is, it's a kind of, the function is generative. So it's generating the content. AI generates the content. It is not created, but then it generates the content. Then authorizing, the kind of authorizations that are required to use and distribute AI generated translations. Then correctness and liability. To whom should we consider responsible for errors or inaccuracies in AI generated translations? So these are questions one needs to think. And inventiveness and creativity. The question is that whether AI generated translations be considered original and creative works, or as, or are they simply mechanical reproductions? Yes, of course, as I said, that generative. The word generative is important. So it is not exactly original or creative, but then of course it is a kind of generative process that keeps on happening, or some kind of, um, technical reproduction that takes place. Now, yes, so I would now like to conclude by saying that, this was a very, you can say, introductory research conducted with the young generation, just to see that the kind of translation tools they access. I wanted to find out whether the young people, they are using translation applications or not, because there are many applications that these youngsters are fondly using, and of course one such is translation application. For example, today also I was writing something in English, and I wanted to convert that write up in another language. So I thought that I will also make use of Google Translate. It is going to help me a lot. So of course these applications are popular among the youngsters, and to some extent I wanted to find out that whether they are using these applications, whether they are using, so suppose someone's mother tongue is in, let's say, Santhali. So the person has a write up in English and wants to translate the work in Santhali. So of course Santhali is there in Google Translate, and it can simply give the output. So what happens is, like, once these applications are covering these languages other than, the major languages, um, then then you know then of course, it becomes, a kind, for it becomes, you can say that once these languages are being covered, so we can say that uh, there is this is a kind of, something that actually prevents erosion of language. Okay, because when, as a linguist, when we talk about, dying languages or languages that are getting eroded, so of course, we look at various ways through which we can save language. So as we say that it's important that as speakers we must speak the language. We must hold on to our mother tongues. That's one way. That's a simple way of, saving one's language. Then there are other ways also. There are other ways also through which we can save our language. Now, one such cause is lack of intergenerational translation. That is, we don't, the language does not get passed to the next generation. So that's a sad thing. So of course, uh, as linguists, we are making effort to save these languages, to find out the causes, to work on the causes, to document the languages, to revitalize the languages, and to spread awareness about what linguistics is. There are many people who still don't know what linguistics is about. So we are doing our genuine efforts to save the languages. Okay. Now, the point is that, you know, um, well, there are, I would also like to talk about, these, the kind of research that I found. So what was my experience? So, well, I was working on on this research. Interestingly, I found that most of the people with whom I was interacting, or I was trying to get the result, they were using these translation applications. So that was something that was very, you know um, a kind of, you can say, a positive thing for me. And to tell you frankly, this was just a small idea that I came up with, that when we are looking at so many causes, why not try to look for something, why not look something in the area of technology. Can technology save languages? So I was thinking on those lines, and then I thought of, why not working on AI, and why not think of translation tools, because through translation tools also, you learn language. When you're learning a language, of course there's a scope that you are learning that language, you're becoming a language learner, and you're saving that language also. Well, you learn that language, you're a preservationist, right? So you become a preservationist. You're preserving the language, you speak that, you learn that language, you speak that language, or you're preserving that language. So there are many ways through which we can contribute, and this was one such. So uh, it was a very good experience I had, and I just got to know that my students, or the people with whom I was interacting, I got to know that many of them were using the technological applications. As I mentioned here, that the study actually explored how AI powered translation tools can preserve the vulnerable Indian linguistic codes through certain human made tools and projects. It highlighted the potential for these technologies to bridge the communication gaps and substitute inclusivity in a plurilingual society. To comprehend the role of AI-driven language translation tools in diminishing the risk of language loss by the project practice and documentation at length, and the pros and cons of AI powered translation tools will deliver significant information towards the linguistic fraternity to confirm the technology within the Indian subcontinent leads to the maintenance of linguistic ecosystem. Of course, this is the conclusion, that how, uh, of course, the point is to, how technology that will also lead to the maintenance of linguistic ecosystem. So, well, this is just a beginning. I think a lot has to be done, but yes, the point is that we have started, things have started. And I just hope that many more languages are being covered by these translation applications, so that, that also becomes a way to save the languages. So, with that, I come to the end of the talk, and I can see some questions in the chat box. So, of course, there's a question: can I ask, translating from what to what in what context? So, as I already said, that translation from from a particular language to another target language. And as I said, that, for example, if you need to translate, there's some content in English, and you want to translate in the mother tongue or in any other local language, you can do that. Do you have any idea how these organizations are engaging with the communities on ethical considerations? Example, do speakers who provide data give consent for language models being trained on it, etc.? Well, of course, a lot of work is being going on, as I mentioned, the various platforms and all. So I have, of course, there must be ethical considerations also. I have just noted down the platforms that are actually working in this area, and every platform has their own way of working. But as far as um, the data consent, I think that's something, uh, uh, they must have some kind of some kind of ethical considerations from their side. So of course there must be, and that must be there. So we can hope, because these are very prestigious platforms, and I'm sure that they must be having their that ethics, their views on ethics. So that consideration, that ethical consideration will also be there, I'm sure. How many endangered Indian languages are there, and what are they? Now, interestingly, well, there are many, for example, tribal languages, and we have Sino Tibetan languages also. So, lots of languages are there. So, from safe category to extinct also. So yeah, of course there's a huge list. Okay. And of course UNESCO has already defined the four levels of endangerment. So we have vulnerable, definitely endangered, severely endangered, and critically endangered. So it of course according to different you can say different parameters, there are different languages. So that's a very sensitive thing, because the point is that endangerment has become such a crucial issue. So of course more than, you can say more than 150, of course I think I should say around 200, around 200 languages. They are completely, UNESCO numbers to around 200. I think it was more than 195, between 195 to 200, almost. Those languages are completely endangered, and it is making the country, um, you can say with the largest number of languages that are facing the risk of extinction. So of course there's this UNESCO classification of being vulnerable, definitely endangered. All those parameters are also there, that needs to be studied. And then we need to see how of course we can take steps to preserve these languages. Then there's a question: are you familiar with the UNESCO conference Language Technologies for All? It has been held annually. You can certainly present in the next edition, probably February 2026. Well, thank you so much. I would definitely like to, work on your suggestion. And I would definitely, I just look for platforms where, where I can talk about language endangerment, and I can just, promote, I can just carry my work forward. So, of course, I would definitely like to be a part of that event. Thank you so much for sharing the information. What about regional varieties of the respective languages themselves? Yeah, true. Can they be included in that whole project, or does this represent a problem in some way? Yes, of course. We know that, of course, they can be included. And linguistics cannot, avoid variation. So we have the regional varieties also. And it just depends how much, how much, you want to go in the depth. So if you want to work on the regional varieties also, regional varieties you want to include, you can go on. Like I remember that long time back, I was working on a paper that was related to code mixing, and I thought of including the linguistic variation also in that. But that time, due to paucity of time, I could not include that thing within the topic. So I was working on how, code mixing leads to, dying of languages. So I thought of including linguistic variation, but due to less time, I couldn't work on that, because you need enough time to research on those areas also. So I thought that maybe later. So of course that can be included. So if you go into depth, you can always talk about the variation, and how, things are there at the regional varieties level. Did you study an endangered language yourself? Well, I don't speak an endangered language, but I speak Hindi, for that matter. I know Sanskrit also, and I know a language called Dogri, which is spoken, uh, which is spoken in the Jammu region. But yes, of course, there are certain couple of languages on which I worked, Those are languages. Sino-Tibetan language, for example, one of the languages I worked, for linguistic analysis. But then I don't speak the language. um, how good are the newly automated translations these days, and how will they improve in the future, like that is in Santali, like, yeah. So see, I said that technology has its own advantages and disadvantages, so we cannot rely fully, but then for the basic knowledge, well, these are quite okay. But then sometimes there can be faulty translations also, so it has its own limitations. And but yes, that's one way. But I think a lot of improvement is going on in this area. And like today only I was just reading that the Bhashini application, it has included some more languages, okay, within its entire thing. So from a certain number it has increased, it has jumped to a different number now. So we can expect improvements in the future, and let's hope for the future. Let's hope for a future where we can see the improved side of it. But at least the good thing is that technology is slowly improving, and let's hope for better automated translations. But of course it has its limitations, so we need to be aware. We cannot just completely rely on that. Are there any open platform that is not proprietary for using AI for translation? uh, okay, well, um, um, it depends. Like most of these platforms which are using AI for translation, like there are some of the institutes, for example, in India, where they are actually where they are showcasing platforms where there's a lot of AI work is going on as far as the translation is concerned. So, of course, the students who are part of the institution, they are working on it. But then you need to find out, and I think you need to find out where there are any open platforms. But I'm sure that there must be some platforms. The platforms that I actually mentioned. So I mean, one can also associate, if you're really if you are an academic, for example, or if you're working in that area, you can approach people, and you can, I'm sure that the people will always help you out. All right. So I think with that, so there are no questions now. So it was a pleasure to be a part of this grand event. And I really want to thank the organizers for putting such a good show. So I really want to thank the team. And I just look forward that in future technology helps us more in saving these languages, where we as linguists are doing manual work also. But then at the same time, if a technology is also helping us, then it is really, it will be okay. Okay, there's a question. What about possible AI caused errors? If we assume technology is still far from perfect, even though it's really useful, how to prevent recording of wrong things? Yeah. So, of course, AI errors, of course, are there. And as I said that sometimes there are some, faulty translations also that take place, or faulty information also is provided. Okay. So, of course, it is still not perfect. But then how to prevent recording of wrong things? So well, the point is that, everything, for every translation, we cannot, if we need a certain translation equivalent, we cannot, sometimes we don't find the exact translation. There can be, sometimes it's something weird also. So that essence is already lost when you want the translation. But then if there is, if you really need some kind of translation, you bank on it. Okay. For example, if I've written an article in English, and now I want to translate in different Indian languages, for example, some Dravidian language, which I completely don't know, but then of course this application will help me. Now the good thing is, if you can, have the translated text with you, you can just approach some expert also. It just depends. If you can reach out to some expert person, take his or her opinion, so they can help you out whether this is the right thing or not. Okay, so it's up to you. And of course, In that way, that's a best exercise. You talk to somebody who knows the Dravidian language. So for example, if I don't know Malayalam and I want to translate my English text, that English content in Malayalam language, I can approach a Malayali speaker who is the native person. Okay. So I can have some word to word, or line to line translation, and then that person can help me out. So I think that's one of the reliable methods. How reliable is Google Translate when it comes to translating an endangered language, when the translation, let's say from French into German, often requires a lot of imagination to understand it? Yeah, that's true. Of course, as I said that, there are many people. There, I mean, for example, if suppose my student wants to translate something from French into German, and who is just not completely sure of the language, so can always approach some expert. And that's what I'm saying, that it is good that if you can take some manual help. So I think that will be very authentic. So it's good to, as we always say, that for data or for any information we must have authentic source. So I think no one can replace a human being, so why not visit some expert or talk to an expert if you can lay your hands on and get the right result. Are there any more questions? Okay. So I hope the questions, there are, if there are any more questions, you can still post. I hope I could make my things clear, because as I said that this was a very basic idea that just came to me, and I really want to upgrade this work in future. And that's a very interesting area also, the area of AI power translation tools. Because right now we are in a situation where we are surrounded by artificial intelligence, and that has become a norm. So we cannot escape it. So why not think on those terms also? So if there are no questions, I again want to reiterate what I said before. I really want to thank the organizers of Polyglot conference, and every year I take part in it, and it's really a wonderful experience to be a part of this show, which is so nicely organized. And the kind of questions that you receive, that shows how inquisitive the audience is. So I really want to thank the audience, and let's hope that next time when we meet, we can have an upgraded information. I'll come with upgraded information which we can discuss more. And because I said that this is just a very preliminary talk, just a very it's just from a beginner's point of view that I started, and I really want to upgrade this work. So let's hope that whenever we meet the next, we can have an upgraded version of this. So I want to thank you all for listening to me patiently, and I hope that you liked my interaction. Thank you so much.